Okay, so I might actually start with the introduction, and then we can let people drop in as I'm talking. Välkomna till våran serie av frukostseminarier på Closer som handlar om då digitaliseringens roll för ett hållbart transportsystem. Och det är Digilog som organiserar detta, alltså digitalisering inom logistik på Closer. Idag så kommer Liam Ford från Webhookie att presentera the value of interoperability for a sustainable...
Inte larma då om det går.
Okay. I think someone is not muted. So this is an open meeting. Now I switch to English, but that's fine. It's an open meeting, so everyone are able to talk and join the discussion. So the setup is Liam will present, and I think the presentation will be around 25 minutes. And then we open up for questions and discussion, and you're all welcome to join that. And me and Per-Olof Arnes will also be moderating the discussion and have some questions for you, Liam. So with that, I think I give the word to you, Liam, for your presentation. So I will stop sharing.
Great. Okay, let me see if I can share. Okay, I've shared my screen. And I do have a bit of sound coming up in the presentation a bit later, but I didn't get an option to share my sound when I shared. So if it doesn't come, we'll try again at that point. But thank you, Vanja, and great to have the opportunity to be here with you today to talk about a sustainable supply chain and interoperability. And one of the main topics that I'm passionate about right now with interoperability is event-driven APIs and how I believe they're going to power a sustainable supply chain. Let me first introduce myself. My name's Liam Ford. I'm a co-founder of Webhookie, which is an open source webhook API platform. You'll get to know what a webhook API platform is by the end of this presentation as well, if you don't know already. I've got 20 years of B2B integration experience. It's what I've been doing for the majority of my career, is integrating systems and businesses. And I've also, about 6 years ago today, I started a journey within Ericsson's emerging business area, where we had an ambitious project where we tried to bring a product to market to help digitalize the logistics chain. And the idea of the product was to use open internet standards to create a decentralized federation of platforms that could all talk to each other more or less seamlessly, which we named the Internet of Logistics. And I'm a co-author of this Creating the Internet of Logistics journal. And while the product never really came to market, the ideas with it are now used within two digitalization initiatives within EU. One is the IATA One Record, and one is Federated. But let's start by talking about my presentation, talking about what is an efficient and sustainable supply chain. And one angle to look at it is through the lens of the UN Global Goals. But I've only got 20 minutes or so today, so let's take a simpler view and using the lens of the triple bottom line: people, planet, and profit. Which again, to simplify, is we want our fair trade products sourced, manufactured, and distributed with a low impact on our most precious resource, our planet, by companies that don't go out of business during the process. And in order to achieve this, companies, governments, and associations are driving programs to improve ways of working at an increasing velocity. This cycle is going faster and faster. And I don't think it's controversial to say that all the efforts that are currently ongoing are trying to achieve more or less one thing in these improvement cycles, and that is often about sharing data. whether it's about communicating the history of your product and the fair trade and where it comes from, the sharing of CO2 emissions, or just simply optimizing processes through automation to make sure we can do this as efficiently as possible. Sharing data is fundamental to everything we do today in information in IT. Sorry, but while sharing data might be fundamental, it is also where we have one of our great challenges. And taking the digitalization of logistics chains as that challenge, it's easy to depict that. So this quick animation highlights the number of connections or integrations that need to be established to share information between the different players in the chain. And while this is simplified, it highlights part of, it quickly demonstrates the challenge the industry is having to digitalize the flow. And especially when you start to scale it out to the more realistic numbers. The simple equation is that using our traditional integration techniques, it does not keep pace with the challenge that's out there in order to share information between all the players in the chain. And this comes down to fundamentally that the cost of integration is too high today. Integrating new tools, systems, processes, partners, and businesses at speed is critical to meet the demands of the future. Yet the time and cost it's taking to integrate is holding many companies back. And what that comes down to is that why integration is holding many companies back is that many integration capabilities are not discoverable. And often you need to bring in integration experts on all sides to start to actually integrate. So if you want to bring in a system and get it going, rather than just pulling in the data that you need when you need it, you're having to start integration projects, bring in integration experts. And that means that something that should be fast takes 2 to 6 months to get done. But for those involved in digitalization, you've probably heard of APIs. And APIs provide a fast, standardized, and secure way to get access to data. Now, if you've been involved in digitalization, you've probably been involved in building a new website, a new portal, or a new app using these APIs. And the most common API out there today is what we call a REST API, which is request-driven, which means that you need to have some interaction. It goes and asks, is there any new data? And it provides an answer back. And this is the most common API out there, as I mentioned. But there are other APIs out there that are now starting to emerge, which is what I want to talk about today, which is event-driven APIs. And an event-driven API, for those that maybe aren't familiar with it or understand it, and I will, through this presentation, demonstrate it so it'll hopefully sit by the end of this presentation, is that when an event occurs in a system, it pushes that data to any subscribers that are out there. Now, most processes we have today in business are event-driven. And that is, using event-driven technology is key for helping to digitalize a lot of the processes we have within logistics and the supply chain. So if you have discoverable self-service and event-driven real-time APIs, you can basically cut down the cost and time to integrate. By decentralizing integration, you empower your developers by providing these APIs that are discoverable, which data is then pushed to the consumers. And this makes the integration business case more viable with reduced costs and effort. So I'm highlighting here 4 different use cases where event-driven APIs are going to play big parts coming into the future. And one is the B2B processes, which is very important for digitizing the supply chain and logistics. Also, process automation within a company requires real-time event-driven data. Sorry, was there a question?
I think you can go on.
Yeah. Data synchronization also needs real-time data, event-driven data, and real-time business intelligence requires event-driven data. But and this is what we're trying to bring with Webhookie, which is an event hub, and it turns basically your business events into real-time event-driven APIs that will enable efficient and sustainable supply chain by cutting integration lead times and their costs, and empowering developers by making real-time event-driven data accessible and self-service. Now, what I'll do is I'll take you into a real use case where we looked at for IATA's hackathon, which describes how event-driven APIs can be used in sharing IoT data, and how that can help solve some of the challenges we have to make an efficient and sustainable supply chain. So let me play this video and let me know if you can't hear the sound, and we can change it. Is the sound coming through?
No.
Let me see if we can reshare. How do I reshare this?
You stop share screen, and then when you reshare, click also optimize for video and share sound. I think you have.
Oh, there. Optimize. Sorry. Yeah, sorry. Thank you. Can you see my screen now again?
Yeah.
Yes.
$35 billion of medicine is wasted each year due to issues in handling the freight. Shippers use sensors to track treatment of the packages, and carriers use sensors to track environment within their cargo halls and warehouses. Yet still there is huge waste in the pharmaceutical transports. Why? Let's hear from Petri and Walter.
That differences with those cargo hall temperatures and what is in the boxes, that is definitely one issue. Of course, we are getting that information via the forwarding agents. Those are passive loggers, so we are getting after the incident is happened. So we are just try to do.
Sorry, I don't know.
$35 billion of medicine is wasted each year due to issues in handling the freight. Shippers use sensors to track treatment of the packages, and carriers use sensors to track environment within their cargo halls and warehouses. Yet still there is huge waste in the pharmaceutical transports. Why? Let's hear from Petri and Walter.
That differences with those cargo hall temperatures and what is in the boxes, that is definitely one issue. Of course, we are getting that information via the forwarding agents. Those are passive loggers, so we are getting after the incident is happened. So we are just try to do corrective actions for the future. But of course, for that shipment, there ain't anything to do anymore.
Challenge is actually that the logger which the shippers are putting into these pharma shipment boxes, it collects the data. But the data which this logger collects is not shared to any other parties.
Traditional thinking is that it is the carrier's responsibility to track the treatment of the freight. What if we turn that around? Using one record and Webhookie, carriers could instead subscribe to the IoT events directly from the shipper. This would provide the carriers with real-time information that they can act on, as well as insight that they can learn from before the receiver receives the box. We're using a mobile app to simulate the device being used inside a pharma transport. The app is sending IoT events to a shipper's backend solution. The backend then generates events based on business rules. Webhookie is then turning the events into a Webhookie API using the One Record standard. The Webhookie API enables their partners such as carrier Finnair to subscribe to the event as well as manage their subscription and inspect the traffic sent to them so they can manage exceptions should they arise. On the Finnair side, we have a control tower which is subscribed, enabling them to see the real-time events from the shipper. Now, if the temperature in the box is approaching a threshold, a warning event is sent from the shipper to Finnair, allowing them to act. Solution needs to be fast and easy to bring on subscribers, so let's add road carrier Ospentos and their control tower. Ospentos log into shipper's Webhookie, discover the webhook, create the application, specify the callback details, and then test the subscription. The test is successful, so we can now activate. Now we can start seeing the feed coming into Ospentos control tower, all in the matter of about 60 seconds. So to summarize, thanks to the One Record and Webhookie, we're able to bring on subscribers in minutes, and carriers can get real-time IoT events from the source of the truth, allowing them to act and learn before the receiver gets the package.
Of course, it has to be easy to use, easy to connect, and easy to get that data there. So that easiness definitely is the keyword there, because at the moment that there is that information there, but it's not available, so that transparency is missing there. So I see there will be huge market and benefits for the One Record and Webhookie related that.
The idea of this project is to put this piece of equipment to share with other parties, or even the real-time environment, with the shipper, with the consignees, and also to the transportation parties. I think this would definitely help to reduce the shipment needs to be destroyed after arrival to the destination, which means that the pharmaceuticals goes to waste actually.
So that was just a demonstration of a use case of sharing data, but I also thought I'd give you a quick just overview of that, of Webhookie and how it actually enables the fast sharing of data, because I understand it's quite fast to go through that and understand what is actually happening. But this is the Webhookie developer portal that you can see on your screen, which I've just signed into. And when I sign into it, it shows me the event-driven APIs that I have access to. So the end user for this is a developer or a technical resource. And within Webhookie, you can start to look at the gallery. So if we start to look at the different event-driven APIs that we have, so we have, for example, in this use case, and we've got the Iot Events Api, where we can start to see, different events we could quickly subscribe to and get this data. We might have, a sales and distribution events API, where we can automate the flow of purchase orders and invoices and advanced shipping notifications, similar to how we do EDI today, which is all event-driven. If you're familiar with EDI, that's the most traditional way of doing integration today between business partners. And once you've discovered what data you want to subscribe to, it's simply a matter of setting up your application. So in this case, we have my ERP application that wants to subscribe to that data. I tell that ERP application where I want that data to be sent. So when the actual event occurs, so when a new invoice is created, I want that data to be sent to my URL. I can then test that subscription, which will send an example to my URL and get a positive response. And then I can go through and subscribe. And for this, I've got security around it where I have to say why I want to subscribe to it. So I need my invoice data for synchronizing in my system. And we submit that for approval. The subscriptions can be managed. So as an approver, I can come in and approve that subscription. And then as a consumer, I can activate that subscription. And now whenever new invoice data is going to be sent, I will get that instantaneously into my system. So in a matter of a couple of minutes here, you can imagine as a developer, I'm able to now start getting that real-time data into my system within minutes. And if you're familiar with many integration projects out there, well, we've basically cut out weeks, if not months, you know, where to get to this stage. So if I was to send an invoice through, which I've just simulated, so I didn't show you that, but I just sent some data through. What was the, invoice. What was it called? It was, our subscription was called, yep, invoice. Then we can start to, I need to authorize. So we can start to see, I just sent an invoice through. I can see in Webhookie that the invoice has been sent correctly to my application. So I've already got that data. And anytime invoices are created, that will automatically be sent across. So that was a quick presentation about that. And apologies for some of the issues through it. But again, thank you for the opportunity. And if anyone wants to reach out for further demos or chats about how event-driven APIs can significantly cut down on the cost of integration, please reach out. But yeah, thank you, Vanja, for the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Liam. So we now open up for questions, and I will actually take the opportunity to start. So very interesting to see the demo of your solution as well. And when I see it, I'm thinking when implementing your solution, what have been the success factors when doing so? What level of maturity when it comes to digitalization is needed for the customers or users of your solution?
Well, with this technology, it's very quick and easy to get value out of the product. It doesn't take huge maturity. You need to be able to, if you're working with cloud technologies, that's probably one level of maturity that needs to be there. This Webhookie is a container product, so it means it can be installed in any sort of cloud infrastructure, or once you've got it installed, integrating towards it to provide the data into Webhookie is a very straightforward process. I mean, if you can call an API, a REST API, then you can start making your data available as event-driven APIs. It's very quick and straightforward to actually set up Webhookie and get this running.
And so when I'm thinking of interoperability and information sharing, I usually think of like industry and supply chain, but how can other types of organizations, or have you worked with other types of organizations like cities or city planners, and how could they benefit from an increased level of information sharing?
We've worked mainly in the telecommunications industry as well as the logistics. That's the main industries we've been in at the moment. And, but this is a universal need. I mean, to be able to share real-time data is fundamental to our connected societies and our connected world that we live in today. So literally within any industry, any use case, you can see the need for sharing real-time data. And, making real-time data available as a event-driven API within a developer portal that takes a few clicks to subscribe to, you can start to see the value in almost any industry use case.
And also you show that new techniques are needed to meet future demands of digitalizing the supply chains. So if you would describe these new demands, what are the main directions that you see?
I just see the new directions as just the higher levels of connectivity required. I mean, it's we want to get information about the products from where they're being sourced. We need to get information all through the supply chain, how it's being treated, either through transport or through manufacturing. All these types of information is leading to higher and higher levels of connectivity required. And that's what consumers want and governments are demanding, is to have that level of information. So, I mean, that's the main trend that I see happening, is that there's just higher and higher demands of integration required. And therefore, we need to make integration as straightforward as possible.
And now we have a raised hand from Per-Olof Arnes.
Yeah, thanks, Liam, for a great presentation. I've been thinking about these things for like 15 years or more, I think 20, working. So I'm well aware of the problems and the challenges, but also the possibilities of it. One thing that has sort of become very current the past years is to be able to serve others with an API so that they can build their own functionality around whatever system you have. Let's say you have a delivery service and you want others to be able to build apps predicting estimated times of arrival for them or whatever. Would that be possible to do here, so that you would create an open-ended integration, basically? Regardless of what system you have, you could create a standardized way of others to subscribe to your data.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a great use case that you bring up, that I mean, if you can, the journey we've gone through with digitalization has primarily been around, we want to build a great app, or we want to build, a website, and we want to get information into it. But that's limiting in terms of some of these real-time use cases. And if you want to then, use, for example, provide real-time input about how your transport is moving, then you want that data in real time. You don't want to have to go and ask for that data every 5 seconds to say, okay, is it moving or is it? So using event-driven APIs for those kind of use cases is a perfect use case.
So would you say that this is sort of the B2B version of IFTTT or something like that? Just to understand.
The B2B version of IFTTT.
IFTTT is this: if this then that. It's a way for connected services and devices to it's a switchboard basically, but it's consumer facing. It's very so they have a very large library of functionality exposed for everything from my smartphone to my Facebook account to my smart IoT stuff. And then you can create, it's event driven, and you can create actions based on events basically between systems that are not really connected to each other, but you create the integration via your accounts.
Yeah, then I think it's a very good analogy. Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
So just reminding that you are welcome to ask questions, and just raise your hand if you would like to ask a question. Sorry, Pio, if I interrupted, maybe you had some more questions. So yeah, did you say something, Pio, or?
No, I could, but I didn't.
Okay.
I can talk about this all day. No, but I find this really interesting, and it's been technically possible for like 20 to 25 years to do this, but still the systems out there are slow to pick up on the possibilities of using event-driven, for instance, event-driven architectures. Yeah. We did a mind experiment, I think 10 years ago. What would happen if a pallet had a Twitter account? And basically started tweeting every time something changes, and then anyone could subscribe to that. And this is exactly what you are building here, Liam.
Exactly.
And it works, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is what we saw when we were trying to, when I was working with Ericsson and their emerging business, and we were trying to bring this digitalization in logistics. We had these ideas, that this is how it should work, but we saw that there was basically a missing foundation of tools and technologies that would help companies get going. And that's really where the idea of Webhookie came about, which is just a foundational tool that could be used to help make these events that are happening in business. And there's events happening all over business in all different parts of the processes, to help make them discoverable, self-service, and enable consumers to get access to that data in real time. So that's where the inspiration of it came from.
And you mentioned, if I understood it correctly, that there's a possibility for me to host my own instance of the service on
that's correct,
for security reasons. For instance, I don't want to have a publicly available event API. I want it some level of security.
Yeah, exactly. That's correct. So it's a container product, which means that you bring it into your architecture and install it in your network, so that you can control the security around your data storage and where your data is. And there's full security around the product in terms of making who can discover your event-driven APIs. And even once you've decided who can discover your event-driven APIs, you can put the security around, if they want to create a subscription, well, it needs to be approved first. So it not only makes event-driven event-driven information available, but it also provides the security around it and provides the visibility about who is getting your data. And that's something also we see in enterprise integration. It's not very clear often in the integration world who's all getting my data, and what data are they getting, which is another problem that a tool like Webhookie is helping trying to solve.
Now, talking about maybe future development, but also possibilities. What about scripting and using conditioned responses, and maybe combining several data sources into one?
Yeah.
I want to have a message that my shipment is delayed if it's raining, and if it's an even week, and if it's Tuesday. And if I'm on my way home from work, because then I would like to know that. Would that be possible? Yeah,
and this is in our roadmap with our product. So, I mean, the first thing within our roadmap of our product is to enable self-service mapping of data. So what we want to provide is the ability for, when a developer subscribes to a piece of information, rather than them having to map that themselves into their database on their side, enable them to actually put the scripting inside Webhookie, where they can say, through configuration, I want this data to be mapped to an existing REST API that I already have. So really cutting down integration into a matter of minutes, the full end-to-end integration. And then further down our line in our pipeline is making sure that we can, giving the options to filter that information, but also giving the ability to, as what you mentioned, start to basically give the ability to join information so that you have a pipeline of information. As you get that event-driven data, you can start to call other APIs to add information to that data, and then go on and call an existing REST API that you might already have in your system. So this is the roadmap that we have for the product.
So you mentioned Ericsson. Is this a spin out from Ericsson?
Well, this is where it's come from, and this is where we've seen the challenges. So this is where, yeah, where my background has come from.
Okay, so I think if there aren't more questions now, then you just have to stop me. Thank you so much, Liam, for a great presentation. And as you said, if someone has more questions, they can contact you, and you have shared your details here as well. And we will also share the presentation on our YouTube channel for those who want to share it with colleagues or see it again. And I will also try actually to share a slide of the upcoming seminars. So I hope this will work if I just do that.
Yeah, it works.
Great. So we have two upcoming seminars. So the 10th of May, we will talk supply chain risk and data security. Staffan Truve from Recorded Future will join us. And then predict delays in freight transport, the 24th of May. And that's Jonas Janfeldt from the Train Brain who will join us. So please spread or share the link to the meeting with your colleagues, and we hope to see you then as well. And just reach out to me if you have some questions after the seminar. So with that, thank you very much, Liam, and everyone who joined. And see you in May.
Thank you, Vanja. Thank you all.
Bye.